need to reason. Will you open your eyes? It's a wonder what you'll find with an open mind. You may be surprised. Yeah, gotta get away from this illusion. For the sake of the world, this delusion. It's gotta go.
Hey everybody, welcome again to the Atheist Experience. I am your host, Russell Glasser, and with me today is Martin Wagner.
Yellow.
I was following some tweets coming out of wherever Matt Dillahunty is debating Cy 10 Bruggencate this weekend.
Tennessee-ish, I think.
Yeah, somewhere around there, and it sounds like it was not pretty. Sounded like a bit of a bloodbath.
See, it sounded to me like it was incredibly pretty. It was a thing of beauty.
Yes, it depends on
A thing of beauty that is a joy forever.
Anyway,
That's what it's. Yeah.
Look for the video of that. I will be.
I know. But no, I mean, for those of you, some people just kind of seem to think that we all went, and we're like, guys, it's Tennessee. It's like,
it's not like
9 hours away.
It's
so
not like
really...
the organizers of these events pay to fly us, fly
like
the whole crew over there.
And yeah, it would have been nice if it had been streamed, but I do understand it was recorded.
Probably.
I don't
know.
what Matt said was that
Matt has said that a video will come up.
I think he says Seth will have it.
Okay.
Thinking Atheist, I think.
I don't. Okay.
Maybe. That's a yes. Okay.
Gotcha.
So
there was a hashtag associated with that debate that I was following, but I can't remember off the top of my head what that was. But
hashtag
anyway.
poor Cy.
Yeah.
Hashtag RIP Cy.
Hashtag presuppositional flop. I don't know. Today is Sunday, June 1st, by the way, 2014. We are a live call-in public access atheist television show based in Austin, Texas, and dedicated to the promotion of positive atheism and the separation of church and state.
Woo!
We're available through live streaming video at ustream.tv, and the official Atheist Experience website is www.atheist-experience.com. You can give us feedback when you comment on the official TV show blog. That's freethoughtblogs.com/AXP. You can also email us at tv@atheist-community.org. If you like this show, you should definitely check out our related podcast, The Non-Prophets, currently airing on the first and third Wednesdays of every month. You can find links at the Atheist Experience website, and the next Non-Prophets will be recorded on June 4th. That is 3 days from now. As always, the cast and crew of the Atheist Experience will be going to hang out at El Arroyo at 1624 West 5th Street, 1624 West 5th Street, El Arroyo. Mm-hmm. And if you happen to be in town, you are allowed to come, and that's all I'm going to say. Yes. The rest of us will be arriving at 6 p.m. Mm-hmm. Given that it's Martin, I know that we just want to launch straight into callers. Is that correct?
We could. Otherwise, we'll say I did a couple of podcasts last week.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like sort of a rapid fire thing, almost Tuesday night and Thursday night, and yes. Enjoyed them both tremendously. But the one that I enjoyed particularly was it was called the Debate Show Without an Interesting Name. And it was sort of, it was...
that is kind of an interesting
myself,
name.
And then there was another atheist, but it was also like a lot of liberal Christians on it.
Okay.
And so it was like an interesting sort of back and forth, discussion that was like an actual discussion. And I found that to be a lot of fun to engage in. They're nice guys, good guys to talk to. It wasn't the sort of, but they weren't, the typical, what you think of when you, especially American Christians, the right wing. One of the fellows is actually close to Marxist. He's so left,
right?
But he's a Presbyterian minister. So we had a lot of interesting talk, and then after the podcast ran for about, I say a podcast, but this was like a Google Hangout that went for about, both of them were Google Hangouts. But then after for about an hour, we just stayed on the line and talked for another hour after that. It was a very enjoyable conversation. The kind of thing I wish I could do more of. So.
Cool. Yeah.
But I'll try to like on the blog after the show, I'll put up links to those because there will be YouTube. You know, the archived of the archives of those both of those hangouts. Right. So I'll link those.
I'll listen to that some weekday when I'm supposed to be working.
Yes. Speaking of YouTube, I'm going to get caught up this week, guys. I promise. It's just been very busy. So.
Yeah, all you people nagging.
Yeah.
Shut up.
I'm well aware, but yeah.
Actually, you reminded me that I have an upcoming event, and I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure that this has been nailed down as the actual event, but I'm going to be speaking in Abilene, Texas, on July 26th. That's a Saturday. The information that I have right now, but stay tuned because I imagine that could possibly change, is that I'll be there at 1:30 p.m. July 26th. And it's going to be in a room of the public library there. And there's an atheist group there whose name I will totally write down before the next show. And apparently we're
so prepared, you guys. This
Abilene is one of those places in Texas that isn't Austin. So unlike this show, it's quite likely that there will be a lot of theists in the audience. There's going to be I'm going to give a lecture. There's going to be a Q&A period. It's going to be great.
All right.
So if you would like to come down and see people at the Atheist Experience in person, but you never get to because you don't live close to Austin, if you're in the Abilene surrounding areas, and like Fort Worth and Dallas are a bit of a drive from there, but not quite as long as from Austin, just those kind of boonies of Texas, then love to see you come out and balance out that audience a little bit. Okay, we're going to start, unless you have anything else to say.
No, I'm good.
We're going to start with Craig in Syracuse, New York. Craig?
Hello.
Hi. Hey. Hey, how you guys doing?
We're all right.
Good.
So I'm just going to jump right in. I had a question basically about the pros and cons of prayer and healing, because I have a YouTube channel and a Facebook page dedicated to helping people getting healthier through just living a healthier lifestyle, getting regular exercise and eating better, which I think we can all agree is good.
Very good.
But I personally,
I try. It's hard.
Personally, I'm an atheist, and I think that most of my subscribers are theists. But so I'm sure that most of them think that prayer and healing is definitely worth their time. And I mean, obviously, we can probably all agree that it's probably a waste of time. But basically, I'm trying to make a video about the pros and cons of prayer and healing, and I can only think of one pro and one con as of right now. So I don't think it'd make much of a video.
Pro?
Yeah, I mean, are you? Well, first off, when you say this, are you talking about like actual faith healing in lieu of seeing a doctor, or are you just talking about religious?
Well, you said prayer, not.
Okay, yeah, well, that's why I'm trying to make sure that is in fact what he's referring to, because I know that, and I think it's kind of understood. Like even those of us who are atheists, for a believer who is sick or going through some sort of medical situation or something like that, for them to pray, it's understood that the act of doing that would give them some emotional and psychological comfort, which could, in the broader sense, be of some kind of benefit to their going through this process.
I mean, the placebo effect is a real thing. If people believe that they're going to get better because they did something, then it's more likely that psychologically they'll be in a better position to heal. Now, the placebo effect isn't huge, but it could be like you improve your chances by 15% or something like that. Is that the pro you were thinking of, or do you have something else?
Actually, yeah, that's pretty much exactly what I had for the one pro.
Mm-hmm. Okay, if I were you, I would research the placebo effect and write something that sounds smart about it.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, if that's, the only effect, and if it's a little bit of something, fine. I mean, but as long as, what I do find disturbing, and I think what a lot of us do is, or at least it kind of makes us sad when you have a situation where somebody goes through a medical crisis and they come out the other end thanks to the hard work of a bunch of doctors pulling long hours and medicines that have undergone extensive scientific research, et cetera, and at the end of the day, some person gets released from the hospital, and the first thing they say is, "Thank God I was healed." It's like that's the kind of thing. Come on, give credit where it's due, really. So I think that's kind of I don't really like how religion robs people of that kind of perspective. But
right. So what was the con you had in mind?
The other con I was thinking of is just like sort of being complacent with your health, like maybe not trying to seek out the best doctor, thinking that like, oh, God will lead me to wherever I have to go without like putting forth too much effort. Like just being complacent.
Right. I would just let people know that when it comes to real medical benefits of praying that are in any way different than the placebo effects, there aren't any, and there are a lot of studies that have demonstrated this, including one study that a lot of people have talked about, where they actually showed that in one case, one group that was prayed for got slightly worse for some reason. But I mean,
people were praying for them.
Yeah, but that's probably just in the margin of error, so I wouldn't attribute too much to that.
And I wouldn't also, there's so many grounds on which you can also, choose not to take seriously the studies that Christians cite, where they'll talk about all of these they call it intercessory prayer studies, by which they hope to prove that prayer, there is in fact some sort of divine
something
influence.
You can look up.
And in situations like that, you always wonder, well, hang on, how do you actually sort of set up the protocols for a study like this? Because if you want to say, okay, well, we'll have like this, all these patients on this hospital wing will get prayed for, and these others won't, and they'll be well, like, what do they set up some kind of, around the ones they don't want people praying for, do they set up some kind of, I don't know, prayer shield, or something? Because I remember when I was a little boy, right, and I would be like, it'd be bedtime, and I'd be led through my prayers or something like that. Part of it was, at the end of the day, after I, asked God to bless mom and dad and all my aunts and uncles and cousins and dogs and cats, it was like, and God bless everybody in the world.
Yeah, and that's because if you didn't remind him of that constantly, God would be like, oh gosh, I'm supposed to care about these people. So it seems
like if there are all these small children at bedtime saying, God bless everybody in the whole world, isn't that going to completely jack your results on your intercessory prayer study? If you want to have that, it's like, no, stop, you're not supposed to pray for those people.
I do have
science.
I do have a website to recommend to you on general principles. It is whatstheharm.net. This is a big compendium of harmful effects that have come through various kinds of pseudoscience and belief in the supernatural. And there's a section on just religion with the subheadings being breatharianism, Christian Science, cults, Jehovah's Witnesses, religious fundamentalism, Scientology, and transcendental meditation. So, it may not directly relate to the kind of thing you're looking for, but it could give you some interesting background reading, because there are plenty of people who use this religious faith as a substitute for getting decent medical treatment. And I'm looking especially at Jehovah's Witnesses and Christian Scientists.
Okay. Yeah, cause I know there's some people that will depend like only on prayer. Like we always hear of like the extreme people who like their kids got the flu and they died because they're like, oh well, we'll just pray over them. But I mean, I know there's also people that are like praying and then just sort of being complacent. And I know there's people that are praying and doing everything they can. So I just wanted to appeal to like all the audience and stuff.
Okay. Well, thanks for calling.
Yeah, we appreciate it, Craig.
Right.
Take care. Good luck.
Right,
yeah, good luck with your website.
All right, thanks. Okay.
Tony in Jerusalem.
No, I'm not in Jerusalem. I'm from Jerusalem.
Oh, from Jerusalem. Okay.
All right.
Yeah, how you doing, man?
We're good.
Where were you?
Good.
Where are you now?
I'm actually in Baltimore.
Okay.
All right.
Is it?
Yeah.
I like Baltimore.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty nice. Now, I was actually from St. Louis, Missouri, and at that time I called the show at one time, and it was like, you know, a chubby guy. You know, I don't know his name. I don't want to, you know, he's a pretty cool guy, funny. Forgot his name though.
Okay.
He usually be there, you know. He told me I called literally at the end where the credits came in.
Okay.
You know, and I was telling him, you know, why I should, because my family would give me problems. I used to be a Muslim. I come from a Muslim family.
Okay.
Okay.
When? How long ago?
Yeah, when did you call us?
About say like 4 months ago, maybe 3 months. I'm not sure. Yeah, it was pretty while back.
Okay.
And he told me to basically, you know, move. And I told that.
That's right.
You know, yeah, basically that's my only option. So that's what I did.
Okay.
I left, and everything worked out for the best, I guess, because I don't have to deal with bullshit no more. I tell you that.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Basically, I still have family members, of course, that are, you know, annoyed and think, like, you know, they tell me, oh, how stupid I am, you know, like I got brainwashed by America and all that, you know, it's conspiracy and all that.
So wait, the rest of your family is from where?
Jerusalem.
They're all in
Palestine.
They're all Muslims in Jerusalem.
Yeah, they have different places. You know, some of them in New York,
Okay.
some of them in you know, Venezuela.
But they're all giving you a hard time.
Yeah, they are. You're basically telling me how stupid I am, and that I should like leave America. You know, because they're saying America's going to brainwash me. It's not true. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's the opposite.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of diversity. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know. I mean, all I could think of is, you know, at a certain point, you know, you may have to just sort of kind of tell them, look, I'm sorry you feel this way, but I've got to make the choices that I have to make that are right for me. And if you don't approve of the ones that I'm making, you don't really have to be part of my life, you know.
Yeah, it's
and
kind of hard
I mean,
to say that. It's my family. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of hard to say that. You know,
it is hard. It's hard, but you know, but when you consider, you know, it's not really fair what they're saying to you, though, is it?
Right.
You know?
I mean, when they say you can pick your friends, but you can't pick your family, and you can't pick your friend's nose or whatever. But you know, there's get away from me.
You know, the funny thing is, I actually they made me talk to these scholars, you want to call them, the books and whatever. And then I actually went to the mosque and I talked to one of them. You know, when I asked them, I asked the same question. I seen one of your videos on YouTube. The same question. He asked the same question, and ironically, I got a weird ass answer you would never expect. I said, if God told you,
I guess.
I said, this is exactly what I told. I said, if God told you to go rape a little girl,
Right.
he's like, you know, he's like, what, are you crazy and all that? God would never say that. I was like, all right, I'm just saying, if God told you to do something like that crazy, because he did tell Abraham to kill his son, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So he's like, would you follow that, you know, that order? You know, he told me. I would have pictured him to say no, or, you know, something sane for him to say. What did he tell me? No, I'll do it.
Huh.
He said, I'll do it.
They don't usually go that way, I gotta say.
Let me tell you. He said, if my religion, okay, he said, if it's sunny outside right now, and my religion told me that it's not sun, it's dark, I will believe that it's dark, and this is how much faith I have in my religion. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah.
You know?
Well,
Completely
I mean, you know,
abandoned reason in
at
every.
that point, you just got to be like, well, then I don't take you seriously. What else can I say?
Yeah, you just gotta say, well, look, I mean, sorry, but you're an idiot,
Yeah.
and we just have. I mean, we can't. I have no basis to talk to you anymore if you're going to be actually
Right.
that stupid.
Right.
You know.
But
Yeah.
I'm saying you can't pick your family, but really all relationships should be based on mutual trust and respect. And if you're not getting more out of the relationship with anybody, even if it's your parents, than you're putting
Right.
into it, then you have the
Correct.
right to cut down way down on the contact you have. And you have the right to say, like, you know, listen, Dad, you can't talk to me that way.
And it's difficult, and it's kind of a sad thing to realize that, you know, I have, and it's not just the case, you know, also with religion, but then you have, you know, I have a lot of friends who are gay who had the similar, you know, situation, having to deal with their family not accepting them for who they are, and it's this tough sort of hurdle you have to cross, but but then once you cross it, life gets easier apparently. So, you know, it's tough for that moment, but then you move on, and life goes on.
that's exactly what I did until, eventually, they got to me because, once in a while you're going to need your family, you know what I'm saying? No matter how much you put it, you're going to need them.
Yeah.
And what I did was, I act like I was Muslim. I hey, I was lying to you guys, bullshit. Of course, they know I'm lying, but I guess that it's just that me lying enough for them, it just makes them feel better about themselves. I don't know why, but me lying would just make them feel better because they know if I start saying I don't believe in God and all that, because I used to be really religious, other people will start saying it too.
And think about how crazy that must be to live like that. It's sort of you're lying to them to make them feel better.
Exactly.
They know you're lying to them to make them feel better, but they're going to choose to go ahead and believe that lie simply because feeling better.
Because it's the religion that teaches that. That's why. It's
Exactly.
Not them thinking like that. It's the religion that teaches them that because they say, if nobody's allowed to, denounce their faith. Of course, you're going to die for that. But if you do that, you got to make them not do it, basically. And because once they see the truth, eventually they're gonna see it and they're gonna actually start believing. That's why actually the religion practice. That's what they practice. Just to let you know that.
So that's why he says
Islam is a really crazy religion. It's not as crazy as Christianity. Maybe Christianity was crazy back then, but it's put to order right now for Christian Muslims. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, man! Don't get me started. But yeah, it was nice talking to you guys.
Okay.
It was nice. Yeah.
All right, thanks for calling.
Yeah, I like you, Tony. But thanks for calling, man. And
yeah.
good luck with everything, and thanks for giving us a follow-up. Just
no
chill
problem,
out
no
and,
problem.
Just live your life, man. Don't worry about things.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. All right,
So long,
take it
bud.
easy.
See ya. Salam. Okay, we got Brian in Chicago. How you doing, Brian?
Hello, Brian.
Hey, I'm doing all right.
What's up?
Thanks for calling.
Hi. I emailed and I called last week. I'm a pastor at a small church in Chicago.
Wait a minute. Brian,
this guy.
okay,
Yeah.
so I accused you of maybe being fake, and I would like to know how come you were using a Gmail address identifying a church that apparently wasn't yours?
Well, I wasn't really sure if I didn't think the name of the church would be investigated and searched out.
So that's not your church. Why do you have that Gmail address?
That is the church, but like I said, I don't really want to bring them into it.
Okay, I'm not going to name the church. I'm just I was a little harsh with you in email, but you understand we get a lot of trolls on this show.
My brother told me that y'all get quite a lot of prank
All right,
callers.
Yeah.
I'm gonna trust you since you called, but
And there should be no reason to worry about. I mean, we invite pastors to call. We have.
I've had a pastor sitting right here next to me.
Yeah, there should be no worry that if of any kind of we're not going to infect your church by simply by your talking to us over the phone or on a television show. There's not going to be there shouldn't be any reason why you should be worried about affiliating yourself with your church and saying so outright.
Well, my concern is that my brother was very involved in the church, and he just a couple months ago he called your show, and he'd been apparently watching you guys for a while. And
So, why does that bother you? Are you your brother's keeper?
No, I should clarify that it doesn't really bother me, but the reason I was trying to keep my church out of it is because none of them know, and I'm pretty sure that he doesn't want them to know. They're kind of close
he
to their
doesn't
family.
want them to know. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's just move on. What's your question?
Well, it's not really a question. The last time I called, I was just trying to point out that because the guy who hosts the show I was talking to, I got in on the last couple of minutes, and he said that it was irrational to believe and have faith, and I was just trying to point out that I don't think it's irrational.
Okay. Well, there are a lot of factors that go into what you believe, and a lot of it has to do, I don't think people are irrational for having beliefs. I think a lot of times they're influenced by their culture and their family and peer pressure and stuff like that. I also happen to think that what you believe is incorrect. But
I can understand that.
But there are a lot of people I disagree with in the world without thinking they're crazy or anything.
It comes down to, people believe the things, you don't believe things in a vacuum. People believe the things they believe because they have been convinced for some reason that claim is true or that thing is true. Now, it may turn out that your reasons could be very, very good and they could be sound, and or they could not be good. But what we usually try to ask believers is, what is it you believe in? Why do you believe it? And just please explain it to us. What was it that convinced you? And we listen to that, and then we will say, well, we agree or disagree for this. Usually we disagree for X reasons, and then that's how the discussion comes up. I think beliefs are only irrational, when a person, whatever they are, when a person holds them and in the face of just clear and obvious evidence to the contrary, like good, solid, disconfirming evidence. And this is where, so we would get into people like Ken Ham or Ray Comfort, these people who believe that the earth is 6,000 years old, which is something that actually most Christians actually do not believe. And
yes, I agree.
And then they go on to be very, very dishonest as well in the interest of defending the belief that they've chosen to have. And so Ray Comfort will consistently, he's made a whole career out of going out publicly and saying, no scientist has ever presented evidence for X.
Since we've
but
let
they always
Brian
do,
on the
right?
show,
Yeah.
I think Brian should tell us what he wanted to tell us.
Okay, well, I agree with everything you just said. I don't accept that the earth is 7,000 years old. I think that's a bit ridiculous, and I don't hold to the Bible as literal fact either. If you were to ask me what I believe and why, and there's no reason to go into huge stories about it, but would you accept personal experience as
whose personal
credible?
Experience?
Sorry?
Whose personal experience?
The individual, if you had one, would you
my
accept?
own personal experience?
Yes.
It would really depend on the nature of the experience, because I understand that human minds are fallible, and so if I had, let's not even make this about Christianity. Let's say that I had been convinced that I was abducted by an alien spaceship. I would need, if I got out of that experience and, I didn't have video to prove it, I didn't have, there was no indication that there was anything in the sky at that time, if in short there was no way that I could back it up, I might feel persuaded by my own personal experience, but I still might hold the doubt that it could be some kind of dream or other weird thing. So I think that people are mistaken about personal experiences frequently, and I wouldn't take that as the most definite form of proof of something.
Okay, so say you had, I'll use your example. Say you had the alien story and you believed that you might have been abducted, maybe. And you had your doubts, so let's say it was on a scale between 1 to 100, you'd say if you were right in 50%, but you remember specific events that would have put you slightly more inclined, maybe at 51% or 52% in the actual belief of accepting it as true.
Okay.
Would it be fair to go ahead and believe it based on faith, not to an absolute certainty, but to a degree which you were confident that this probably most likely happened?
I wouldn't necessarily say, I wouldn't necessarily embrace it to that degree, because again, it could still have been some sort of strange, vivid hallucination or mental episode that I could have had. I've had very, very vivid dreams that felt quite lifelike when I was having them. But if I had whatever it was that was, just in my own mind, convincing me that this might be a bit more than that sort of thing, what it would prompt me to do would not necessarily be to just go, okay, well, I will believe that this happened on faith. I would look for more I would look for anything in the way of evidence to confirm it. That it would make me more driven to find some sort of confirmation, some sort of evidentiary back. So for the alien scenario, let's say, well, I would have to say, all right, well, it really, really, really felt like a thing that happened, and as far as I know, I wasn't, just completely whacked out on every drug known to man. So let me retrace my steps that night. Let me see if there are any like landing gear burn marks on the ground. Let me see if check to make sure I haven't been probed anywhere uncomfortable.
Right.
You have to be there should be, if something really, really feels more and more vivid, you would expect to have more evidence. So when the line that people usually like to use in certain situations where they say, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Well, in a situation where if the claim were true, you would expect there to be evidence, well then, no, absence of evidence would be evidence of absence. So the more vivid and the more realistic and the more that I was convinced in myself that something actually happened, that would prompt me to really, really try to find the evidence for it. But I would expect to be able to find something that I could show someone and say, look, see, I wasn't just freaking out here.
See, to me, the example of the aliens kind of fails in this particular conversation because...
Okay,
right,
well, let's bring it back to religious beliefs then.
Yes, okay. So I'll give you a quick little example. What happened to me was when I was younger, I spent a little bit of time in jail. And when I was in jail, I had dreams of Jesus. And he came to me.
Yeah, okay.
That's how it goes. Okay.
And
keep going.
Go ahead.
No, we're sorry. Keep
okay.
going.
All right. So when he came to me, what was odd about it was it felt to me as if he was using my fears to bring me to him. I was in an area that was like really high off of the ground, and there was a board that I was walking on, and I could see his feet at the end of it. And I didn't want to look up at him because I was scared. I was holding onto the wood, and he says to me, "Come to me." And I didn't want to look up. I said, "I can't. I'm scared." And he insisted, and then I woke up. And it scared me, but at the same time, I had these like rushing feelings of like adrenaline, and my heart was pounding.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if of course that's not going to be good for you, or it's not going to convince anyone else, and I usually don't go around preaching that particular story to people. It's not what I'm trying to
The long and short
people.
of it is you had a vivid dream about Jesus.
Right. I mean, I said one of the reasons I might not be sure about my alien experience is wondering if it might be a dream, and you're just saying you did have a dream, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
And I mean, the way dreams work, stuff that's already in your subconscious, and I'm sure you were familiar with the religion at the time already, just kind of bubbles up and gets thrown together in sort of semi-random patterns in ways that seem interesting or meaningful to you at the time. So that doesn't surprise me, the story you just told.
Yeah, I mean, I have a dream that I just very briefly I can recall from. It was I had it in my childhood, but it was so vivid and striking at the time. To this day, I remember it. We lived overseas, and also when I was, I think, about 6 years old, I was getting over some asthma. So my morning routine consisted of I would wake up, I would get dressed, I'd brush my teeth, I would go into the kitchen, my mother would give me my medicine for the day, and then I would go to school. So one morning, I did all that. I woke up, I came in, said time to get up. I got my clothes on. I went in, I brushed my teeth, I combed my hair. I went into the kitchen. My mother gave me my medicine in a teaspoon, and then I woke up again. I had dreamed my morning routine, like vividly. It was a strange, very, very strange moment.
I can top that.
Yeah.
I once had a dream that was like 10 levels nested.
But I was on the Atheist Experience, and suddenly Russell Glasser talked about a dream, and then I woke up. What I'm saying is they can be exactly that lifelike and exactly that convincing. So, we totally believe that you had this dream that was this vivid. Do we believe that it was an actual encounter with Jesus, though? You're right. No, we don't. Because, again, we know that that's how our brains can work for us.
I can completely understand it's just a dream, and that people have all kinds of sorts of dreams, and there's no real reason to accept them as true. And that's why I don't go around preaching and I don't talk to the people in my church about it. I haven't really mentioned it very often. The reason why it's important to me is I want to tell the story, and you've probably heard it, but I'm going to try to make it as quick as possible.
Okay.
There's a man in the ocean in a boat, and he's stranded, and a boat comes by. And
I know the story, yeah.
You know the story, okay.
Well, I guess you better finish it because some
Yeah.
people in the audience don't know it.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
go ahead and
I'll
finish it
try
up.
to make it as quick as possible.
Right.
So a boat comes by. He dismisses the boat because he wants God to help him. The boat goes away. Another boat comes, same thing happens. Another boat comes, same thing happens. He dies, goes to heaven, asks God, why didn't you save me? God says,
I sent
you
three boats. Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Right.
Yes, it's a bit silly, and I understand that. But the way it means something to me, as in, it could be that God has given an example and you dismissed it, or he has yet to given you personal experience
Right.
to show that it actually is true.
But
And-
what that story could also be saying is that the people who told the story recognize that there are all kinds of opportunities that pop up in life all the time, and you can easily credit any one of them to God after the fact. And as an atheist, what I would say is that story is kind of an excuse, because where atheists are looking for direct, solid evidence of something, Christians will just often pull any example of any particular thing that happened in their lives and say, well, that was God. I can't prove it, but that's what happened.
Yeah, if a thing that's good happens in the life of a believer, it's it was God helping them in some way. And if something bad happens in the life of a believer, it's because God wants you to learn something from this experience and have a moment of reflection. So so either way, God can pretty much get the credit for anything that happens in a believer's life, no matter how mundane or profound it is.
So what it seems to me is that we've basically come to a crossroads where either not saying this is true, but either I have a presupposition or you guys have a presupposition.
Okay.
And I'm not saying it's true. I'm saying that either you can't or won't accept it, or I always will, or I always have accepted it. And I'm trying to figure out if there's a way, aside from specific Jesus popping up in the streets with cameras on him.
I mean, here's ultimately what I think. There is no absolute certainty about anything, and so I don't rule out that what you think could be true. But the difference between the point of view that I'm taking and the point of view that you're taking is that I would say you don't want to believe stuff without strong evidence for it, which means you don't just believe things by default, like there was an omnipotent creator of the universe. It matters whether you can demonstrate it. Just like in my alien story, if there were alien ships, you'd expect them to be popping up all over the place. And so what you do is try to cross-reference it with I mean, to validate whether there is any actual evidence of these aliens, other than some people repeating stories they heard or telling stories similar to each other that they can't really verify as true.
But this is where, to me, faith comes in. This is why it's important.
But I don't accept faith as a good way of knowing things.
I don't know if I would say it's a good way of knowing things, but to me, it's almost the instrument in which God has presented himself in the world.
All right.
Now, think about what you just said there. Why would God choose as his instrument of presenting himself in the world a method that was not a good way of knowing things?
The only thing that I can think of, and again, I'm no theologian or really completely studied into all of the history of it, but the best explanation that I could muster would be that he has some
some reason that I just don't understand for it.
Okay.
Maybe there's some criteria in which he's filtering things through, and this is part of the filter.
Right, but at the end of the day, the disconnect between us isn't that you have to explain why there's no evidence. The point is just that Martin and I are not people who are predisposed to accept your conclusion unless there is evidence. And I respect your right to hold that belief, but to me it's not convincing. And maybe the thing to do at that point is just live and let live.
Yeah.
Because, I can understand, I appreciate that, but my reason for calling isn't to necessarily convince you. It's
No, you're trying to just explain where you're coming from.
Yes, and try to present it that I don't believe I'm being irrational. The call I had last week, the host said I was irrational. It was the last thing he said before he hung up on me.
Well, then let me explain where why he might have hit you with that, apart from just limited time, and so.
Yeah, I think Matt was already in a bit of a tense mood after a previous call.
Yeah, but the point is,
anyway.
it's like when you are looking for explanations of things, okay, and remember just everything that you just said a few seconds ago, talking about God has some sort of process and we don't get it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If you are looking for explanations as to why things are, why reality is the way it is, and what you're coming up with time and again is, well, there's this unknowable being and he does these mysterious things in unknowable ways that we can't fathom. That's not really a satisfying answer, right? And it doesn't really, it's a big non-answer, and then just to say, but I will justify holding it on the basis of faith, further seems to just make it more. It doesn't seem like the most rational way to go about looking for things.
I don't think it's unknowable. I mean, I believe that I do.
Or maybe not unknowable, but at the same time, right now, just so thoroughly mysterious that all we can do is shrug our shoulders and say, well, it's thoroughly mysterious. And I don't know. I mean, I think that we could probably do better than that. And it does sound like, I don't understand why that would even be accepted as, well, okay, we'll go ahead and have that. Here's this thing that's completely inexplicable. We'll go ahead on the big list of options as to what our possible answers to X could be. We'll make that an option. A mysterious being working in mysterious ways. Why? Why would that even be? It seems to me to be so outside the realm of even consideration.
You don't think it is an option?
Well,
That
because
it's
but
even possible?
because when it's defined by how utterly inexplicable and impossible to understand it is, then it seems like, well, let's move on to something. Let's at least find something that we can understand. You see what I'm saying? It seems very. God has really no utility as any sort of an explanatory thing. If it always comes back down to, well, his motives are beyond us, or it's beyond our ken or understanding, or his ways and his reasons are just far too mysterious for us to fathom at the moment. That just sounds like reaching and not grasping. And I don't see that it's useful, no. I mean...
It seems to me that it's like there's two types of people. Like the cup is half full, the cup is half empty. And I seem to be on the side of the cup is half full. I'm not saying that y'all are pessimists. I'm saying that in this particular
I think
question...
you're...
I think you're assuming by default that some very complex, very detailed thing is true, and you don't want to have to look for reasons to support it.
It's not that I don't want to look for reasons to support it.
Right, but
I
you
believe
don't...
that my personal experience is enough for me to believe it.
Okay, but it's not enough for me. And Brian, I'm going to let you go so we can move on to other callers, but I do want to say one thing. I mentioned I was really rude to you in email this week, and you have been nothing but polite and a pleasant conversationalist. And I just want to say that I'm glad to find out when I'm wrong about you. So.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Take care. All right.
Bye.
Have a good day.
Okay.
Christian in Cedar Park.
Yes. Hello?
How you
Hi.
doing? You're on.
Hey, I'm a Christian, and I wanted to say in regards to the discussion about prayer before that as far as the uses of prayer apart from the supernatural, but also apart from the placebo effect, that I think that prayer, theoretically, even if you were praying to something that wasn't there, can bring healing apart from the placebo effect.
How would it do it
Like
apart from the placebo effect?
Apart from the placebo effect.
Yeah, how would it do it apart from the placebo
you're
effect?
a Christian, so I presume you also think that it encourages God to intervene in some way, which we don't.
Well, no. That's what I just said. That apart from anything supernatural and apart from the placebo effect.
Okay, what else is there?
Okay. Well, a lot of times when you pray, this is my experience, and I know it's the experience of a lot of other people, that praying is, if you believe, it is, you're in a different state when you're talking to God because you assume that you can't keep anything from God. And so it's a kind of honesty that I think is unique to some type of relationship, real or perceived, with a deity. So that a lot of times a lot of times people pray when they're desperate or when things have gotten to a point.
Right.
I'm not a big prayer, not like a regular thing for me. I used to not be a prayer at all, and I was also an atheist and agnostic, and so that doesn't come naturally to me. But when it has come to me, I find myself going into just a different mode. When you assume that you're completely naked in front of this being.
Isn't that basically the same thing as the placebo effect?
That's what I was just about to say.
That the prayer changes your mental state so that you're in a better place to heal or whatever?
Well, I'm not even saying that, that being in a better mental state is going to heal a sickness. What I'm saying is that when everybody is gathered around a dead relative and people are coming together that aren't usually together, and people start praying, then a different level of honesty, in some cases, in a lot of cases, in my opinion, comes out, and issues that haven't been touched on, because if you have faith, you believe that, none of these things is beyond, despite the fact that people may say that what they would really ask for if they could get a wish or an answer.
Wait, you're saying that prayer can have a social benefit if you pray with other people who also think the same thing you do?
I'm not even saying that other people have to be there praying with you. You may go off to yourself and pray. And again, because of the nature of the relationship that you have with a deity that you believe is all-knowing and all-loving, etc., things will come out in a different way than they have come out before. And you may go because of that, and that may bring a healing to things that are more significant than the person dying, because the first person dying is going to die anyway, whereas things that happen in families, like problems that happen in families, crises, people being hurt, this kind of thing. That stuff.
Christian, it still sounds to us like you really are just describing the placebo effect. I mean, and again, not to misunderstand the meaning of the term placebo effect, it doesn't mean that it's not having an actual effect.
No, the placebo effect is having an effect. But I'm saying,
but it sounds like that it still sounds to us like really that is what you're describing. You have a believer who is convinced that they have a relationship with this deity, so they engage in prayer, an act of communication with this deity, and this brings them into a place where they feel like they're very open and honest and can give vent to their feelings and their innermost thoughts without any fear of having to hold anything back, and then this in turn puts you in a very positive emotional, mental, psychological state, and so on and so forth, and it all builds up, and that's great. And I'm not saying that is not perhaps a psychologically positive thing. In terms of what it may contribute to the healing process, still the placebo effect. I
see what you're saying. I guess what I meant was not, well, if there's not a God, then it's placebo effect, because there's not a drug, there's not a God. So in that case, it would be a placebo effect. I guess what I meant was that not placebo effect in the sense that it's going to cause the virus to go away or the heart attack to be,
Now, people attribute all sorts of things to prayers, and I'm going to tell you a story of something I once did, which is absolutely true. You know, I've heard all these stories.
Story.
True story. I've heard all these stories about people like finding their car keys and whatever if they prayed, and I was like, I wonder if that works with threats too. So I was like, I could not find my car keys one day, and I was like, God, I better find my car keys in the next 5 minutes or I will come kick your butt.
Yeah.
And I found my car keys. And
Well, it sounds
I
like you
do
scared
not, I do not in any way attribute that to God, you know, being
Going,
scared
"Uh-oh."
of me or anything. But what I do say is that anything that can put you in a more positive frame of mind and like make you feel like you're doing some good can contribute to your chance of success. That's my point.
Yeah.
Well, let me throw another thing in there about prayer. To me, the way that I became a Christian again was by I kind of fell into it, and I was always the kind of person who would go along with other people's religious stuff and not make a big deal out of it. I had a friend who was Buddhist, and I had this experience with him in South Asia where we went to some monuments and stuff, and I would, you know, that was interesting, and that had an interesting effect on me. It caused me to reflect a lot on Buddhism. But I noticed that I had another friend who lived in Dallas near me, and we would go and we would take my grandmother to the Catholic Church, and we would go to a Protestant church, and then we would take her to some type of, I guess it's some kind of Thai, something in the Thai community, but a Buddhist shrine they had. And she would go and she would do that, and it all seemed very, all of that was very similar. But my experience was traveling and going on pilgrimages and going to shrines, and it just started to click with me. And I still haven't resolved all of my intellectual issues with it, but I mean, it really works for me.
Okay,
And it's very fulfilling.
I think
It
what
gets
we
me
can
very
get out of
focused.
that is that you're inclined towards a religious mindset. Any religion will fit the bill pretty much. I
it
mean,
might.
you know, it's not a matter of whether they have true beliefs or not. It's a matter of what frame of mind they put you in. I think, would you say that's a fair statement?
Well, I would say that sounds reasonable, but I don't think that's completely clear.
All right, well.
And I would say that for anybody who's considering praying, I would say you've got, absolutely nothing to lose by trying it, and you should try it and see how it does.
Well, again, I'm going to direct you to whatstheharm.net.
Yeah.
Okay, but
But would you say right now, just in the sake of discussion, that you would disagree with that?
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
For the people listening, you're telling them don't even try it for yourself.
Yeah, I would say
Wow.
do not get in the mindset of thinking that prayer is better for you than actual positive action, because
that's not what I'm saying
that
either.
can make you kind of complacent.
Well,
yeah, absolutely, sure.
I mean,
You can
okay,
have
if someone were already a believer, they're going to pray anyway, so they're not looking to us for guidance on whether they should pray.
No, but
And-
if you're looking at somebody who hasn't made up their mind.
Well, obviously, as atheists, we're not going to tell them that prayer is a good idea. We're going to tell,
Yeah,
it seems like
it's
you
useless. It's a
don't even
waste
think
of
that
time.
they should try at all?
Why,
No,
why,
not
why,
really.
why would we tell someone, go ahead and, here's a being that we don't believe in, but go ahead and pretend you're talking to it and asking it for favors?
Okay. Well, let me tell you why. I can
Okay.
give you a reason.
All right.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
first of all, if you have any faith in their intelligence, if they're basically...
If I have faith in their intelligence, I'm not going to tell them to develop an imaginary friend and have a talk with him and
That's
pretend
not
that
what
this
I'm
is
saying.
in some way. But you have to understand, this is how it seems to us. When you say,
Okay,
what's
well,
the harm
let
in
me
praying to
clarify.
God? You're asking grown adults to say, let my imaginary
That's
friend
grown
hold my hand
adults.
through this process. Of course that's not going to be something we recommend.
Well, let me explain real quick. Okay?
All right.
All right. What I would say is, I wouldn't definitely not say go creating an elaborate imaginary friend. If
But
you
that's what
already-
God is to us. We're atheists.
Let me finish a sentence, please.
All right.
Okay.
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 Go ahead.
All right. What I would say is, don't go create an imaginary friend. But if you already have an idea of God that you are not sure whether is accurate or not, then if you're trying to decide, then I don't see if the person has intelligence, let them experience what prayer is and decide whether this is something they want to do.
All right. If the person already has their own conception of God, they're going to pray with or without my advice, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time trying to talk them out of it, because I would rather address the root causes. Okay, this isn't going to work.
Yeah, sorry, man. When it gets to that point, we got to move on.
Yeah, I would rather address the root causes of their potentially harmful beliefs than worry about the individual symptoms of what they choose to do once they've already got that belief going on. So to that extent, I don't care whether or not a believer spends his time praying. Unless he's doing that to the exclusion of something that's maybe harming his kids.
Yeah.
For instance,
a believer is already going to pray whether we, regardless of what we say. And for someone who is not a believer, I mean, of course, what we're going to do is tell them if they have problems in their lives, you should seek practical solutions to those. If there were any evidence that prayer was an actual practical solution, and anything other than just, an emotional security blanket, and not saying that even that is a bad thing, but certainly if we're not going to say. Yeah, even you may not think that this being actually exists, but just go ahead and pretend to talk to him anyway, because who knows, maybe it'll have some ineffable benefit. No, there are a million, out of all the practical solutions that a person could pursue to actually solve a problem, that would be at the bottom of the list, really.
Martin and I are in violent agreement.
See how violent we are.
Let's see. We got 2 minutes, and unfortunately we've got Joey in Los Angeles, who has spent the whole show waiting to talk about presuppositional apologetics and was trumped by a couple of Christians, and there is not a good amount of time. Do you have something quick to say? I'm really sorry, man.
Yeah, we really are.
I know. If maybe I'll try calling in next week. You
probably should. And Matt will be there fresh off his debate, so that might be better.
Yeah, you and he can commiserate on that.
If I'm supposed to add any comment at this point, I guess I would say the last caller has an extremely low standard of evidence. The guy clearly just doesn't care whether his beliefs are true or not. The guy I guess he just likes them. That's it.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what I think. It's not necessarily directly harmful to have low standards of evidence, but it can lead you to do inadvisable things.
It comes down to whether or not you are someone to whom it matters that the things you believe are, in fact, more likely to be true than not. The idea of, I want to believe as many true things and as few false things.
Good principles.
Indeed.
And
bye.
On that note, that's our show. And
have a good one.
Thank you, Martin.
Thank you.
Well done. I enjoyed that show.
Violent agreement. Yay. The best kind.
Okay, we'll
we have
see
a bro
you next
hug.
week. Aww.
One more time.
Aww. Cut the camera, guys.
And 3. No.
Okay. That's why doing shows with you is so fun.
It is. It's fun to do.
Okay.
We're
going to take some after-show calls.
Well, let's do one.
If
Let's
you're
not
cool
like
with
do
that.
it for let's just do one.
Okay. Black non-theist, who I'm just hoping is not Charlie Checkham again.
No.
Hey.
No. Hello?
Okay.
Hi, you're on. Yeah, you're on the post show.
Yes, I'm definitely not whoever you said that was.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you're not on the regular show anyway, so it probably doesn't matter that much.
But
Okay. And let me just tell you, I'm very disappointed that I didn't get on.
well,
But
yeah.
hopefully.
Oh, you're not Charlie Checkham. It's not his
Yeah.
voice.
Well, you'll be on the YouTube version of this.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. That's good. That's better than nothing.
But anyway, as to your question, can we have morality without God? Yeah, sure.
Yes, no, actually, I wanted to just address that issue. I absolutely agree with you. We can definitely have morality without God.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that I've actually defined morality in one sentence, and I think this is the last step that we need in terms of coming out of the Dark Ages, which I thought was the topic of the show. But we had Darwin with evolution that explained how we got here, We had the Hubble telescope, and that told us that we're not alone as far as our galaxy. And I think the final piece of the puzzle for us to come out of the Dark Ages or to come out of theism is to define morality. And so I've defined morality as not infringing on anyone's right to their definition of happiness and not destroying the earth. That is what it means to be moral. That is human morality. I call it the global human morality code. If we all stuck to that code, then we can literally have peace on earth and the earth would be sustained.
Yeah, I think that, fundamentally that's a sound principle, right? And it's existed in it's been phrased in many different ways down through history. Confucius, 500 years before Jesus is said to have done it, Confucius came up with something very much like the Golden Rule. Do unto others, etc., etc. Aristotle's Ethics, proposed a morality based on just the maximization of human happiness generally. This whole idea of just be good to one another and don't needlessly hurt one another, and that's really all you need. And it blows my mind that so many believers think that morality is just this thing that's got to be really, really hard. It's like it's rocket surgery, right? We just can't get it if we don't have a God constantly holding our hands like we're a child. And we have to, and he's got to point to everything and say, there, see, now that's a good thing, that's a bad thing, that's a bad thing, that's another good thing. Like we can't figure these things out for ourselves. Of course we can. And it's very condescending to the human race to think that we just can't be good to one another.
I agree. And let me just point out, though, that if you look up the definition of the word morality, for example, in Webster's dictionary, it says rightness or wrongness as of an action, a right or moral conduct, or moral principles. And you can look it up all over the place, but they never explain what those principles are. And something like do unto others as you would have done to yourself, that doesn't work for morality, because if you are going to do unto others as you would have done to you, that means you're imposing your morality on somebody else. So you're going to do to somebody else what you want done to yourself.
That's actually a good point, because Voltaire had his rebuttal to the Golden Rule was, do not do unto others as you would have them do unto you, because their tastes may be different. So
right, exactly.
Yeah. So, but if you interpret it in such a way as to just say, be good to each other,
and party on, dudes.
Yes, right.
But what does it mean to be good? And that's why I think we needed a more firm definition. That being good.
Well, my rule of thumb, my rule is do unto others what they want you to do unto them, and as a guess, they probably want things like what you want. That's how I would clarify the Golden Rule.
The long and short of it is, no one wants to be hurt.
Yeah.
So if we start on that principle, just nobody hurt anybody.
Some people like being hurt. Some people have a fetish and they like to be hurt and they want you to hurt them.
Yeah, but even then, if you're talking about like role-playing scenarios and where it's all like safely, regulated and all of that. But we're talking about, dropping bombs on people. It's a very different thing. Yeah, just don't be bad to one another. Don't be cruel, and be kind.
Okay.
Easy enough. But we got to run. But
all right, see you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, guys.
See you next time.
All right, you can go. I'm gonna still give our last guy a minute. Anton?
Hey, how's it going, Russell?
Why are there so many atheists in academia?
Pretty much, yeah.
Because studying makes you atheist. Duh.
That was actually my question. Is it people drawn to it that become atheists, or if atheists just want to go?
I think it depends
could go either way.
It probably depends on the subject, and it also has a lot to do with, particularly in the sciences, the more that you know real-world explanations for things, the less reason you have to embrace supernatural ones.
Right, and what I like to point out when people say a lot of profession X are still Christians, like 70% of doctors are Christians. I'm like, well, 85% of everyone are Christians, so being a doctor makes it less likely.
That's why, because the numbers in academia are skewed in our favor, I would say.
Right.
So,
guys, I recently wrote a post about how being a programmer makes you a good skeptic, so I'm kind of talking up my profession, and you should read it on the Atheist Experience blog.
speaking of which, Russ, while I got you on the line, is there any chance you can make non-profits a non-iTunes podcast as well, like an RSS or something? Because I don't have iTunes, and I'm sure a lot of users don't.
It is a non-iTunes the podcast should work with pretty much every podcast listener.
Damn it, I tried it with Subsonic and it doesn't like it.
Huh.
And to the user that just
I don't know,
called
I
in,
have an
think-
Android and I can download it with no problems.
Okay, maybe I'll just try it again. To the user that just called in, I think he might enjoy the moral landscape. I don't know if you would agree.
I think I have it. I don't think I've read it yet.
I think the case that Harris makes is
Oh wait,
basically
is that Sam
lowering-
Harris? I haven't read it. I know that it's one of Matt's favorites.
The audiobook is actually read by him. It's really good with his, diction. It's very interesting. But he basically says lowering the overall suffering of sentient beings is what should be a good morality, pretty much.